Hiya! Welcome to this, my 32nd episode of Video Fuzzy. I'm your host, Terry J. Amon, and in this installment, titled We Used to Be Friends, I talk about the run-up to the second season finale of Veronica Mars, I react to what I'm experiencing as lulls in some recent shows, and I rake Late Show host Stephen Colbert over the coals a little bit. Yep, I never thought I'd have to, but here we are, plus a few media highlights. Enjoy the show.
He doesn't have that on video, does he? We'll find out together on Video Fuzzy.
In what's been going on with me, now that I've caught up with my current collection, I wanted to try getting this out on more of a weekly basis, but last weekend I took my sweet time exploring my classic collection and found out, A, I really enjoy watching the Battlestar Galactica reboot, and 2, the rhythm of one weekend on, one weekend off really fits this podcast. If it was unclear from my Video Fuzzy the video entry, I spend quite a lot of time putting this thing together, watching shows, cataloging them, tracking down episode names, and oh wow, I mean, seriously, I can spend literally hours writing this up, not to mention the recording and the editing, plus new to me editing software and learning how to process the audio to get it sounding as good as I can, and I think I'm getting pretty close, but yeah, each part of this process takes the time it does, and while I'm excited about putting new episodes together, I love having actual stuff to talk about when I do. This past week I was able to get out into my yard a bit. We've been having temps in the 90s and triple digits for most of the past week, but earlier this summer I noticed a tree at the northeast corner of my lot had grown tall enough to start playing with the overhead power lines, and a good chunk of it was hanging over the neighbor's fence, so I wanted to get after that. Well, once I got out there with a saw, I discovered that one big overgrown tree was actually more like 3 trees growing along my northeastern property line. They'd all been thriving under my benign disinterest, and along with 2 saplings gamely popping up between my house and the retaining wall on the north side, I've just got to get after these things more diligently. Most of these could be taken down with the pruning shears, but the power line grabber had gotten itself, and I mean established. So along with some decent, if I'd call it uninspired viewing this past week, I spent some time with a handsaw and a bow saw trying to get these nuisance softwoods under control. A couple hours in the out of doors later, there's still a pretty good amount of trunk to contend with, but I've got a good sense of accomplishment. Our back lot is getting some decent sunlight again, and the rest will keep until our temps start coming down again some. Cheers!
Friday Night Feature!
Last week I was enjoying several episodes of Battlestar Galactica for my classic collection and Supernatural for my current collection. I already had a few good choices to focus in on my Friday night feature when I caught a glimpse of Happy-Go-Lucky, the run-up to the second season finale of Veronica Mars, theme song by the Dandy Warhols, split across discs 519 and 520. Oh my yes.
A long time ago, we used to be friends, but I haven't thought of you lately at all.
Kristen Bell, more recently of Neutrogena ads, Heroes, and The Good Place on NBC, which, aside, I should totally be watching, and just a heads up, Season 3 will be starting up into next month, but there's just so much going on, and spoilers, but a recent promo did note that they're going to be running Season 1 and 2 over on demand for a while, so if I can catch that, I probably will, otherwise I'll probably just wait for syndication and catch it like they ran Cougar Town on TBS, but yeah, back in the aughts, Kristen Bell glimmered as Veronica Mars, the teenage detective and human Google who took on the problems of her friends and others while putting in off hours helping single dad Enrico Colatoni as Keith Mars, former law enforcement and current PI in Neptune, California, a city of contrasts where the super rich rubbed elbows with and into the abject poor, these states most starkly divergent yet intertwined, sometimes not altogether figuratively, at Neptune High. Veronica, among the poor as well as the somewhat disgraced. I don't remember the details offhand, but Keith Mars left his service as sheriff under a cloud. But yes, Veronica spent Season 1 investigating the rape and murder of her BFF, Lily Kane, while tracking an STD she, Veronica, contracted while roofied and raped at a party. So yeah, show creator Rob Thomas swerved dark right away. She also battled racism and other injustice alongside her friend Wallace, played by Percy Daggs, who by Season 2 had a girlfriend, Jackie. Season 2 has been spent trying to pin Lily's murder on rich actor creep Harry Hamlin as Aaron Eccles, while exploring a complicated relationship with his son and Lily's boyfriend, Jason Doring, as Logan Eccles. The episode I saw here, Happy Go Lucky, opens with Aaron's testimony. Veronica staring daggers into him as he tells lie after lie about never sleeping with Lily and deflecting what suspicion he could onto Lily's brother, Duncan. She vows to watch his face when the verdict is rendered and Aaron is stripped of his freedom forever. But in the meantime, she's hard at work studying for finals, which she says she has to ace if she's going to have any chance of attending her dream school of Stanford, and Gia, a girl she helped, invites her to study at her place. Lucky, a side character in a story arc tracking a fatal bus crash through the season and erstwhile janitor at Neptune High, leaps onto a table and threatens students with a handgun. Wallace leapt to tackle him in defense of Jackie's life. Lucky regains the handgun and fires on Wallace. Wallace escapes unharmed. Lucky was shooting blanks. The cop who took him down, however, was not. The whole Jackie thing is her father, Terrence, former pro athlete, is released from also being under suspicion in the bus crash fatality and is thereby beholden to Leonard Lobo, a casino owner who wants to plunk him out front to draw business, a situation Terrence finds humiliating, but he finds that he's trapped. So, despite her renewed commitment to Wallace upon his saving her life in the shooting, Terrence sends Jackie to France, which Wallace finds out about after she's already left. Wow, in 2006 we really needed better email messaging services and smartphones. A good chunk of the rest of the episode is Veronica taking Gia up on her offer to study at her house and hacking one of Gia's father, Woody's, home computers to access some incriminating email attachments Lucky had sent Woody and forward them to her father, Keith, attachments that implicate Woody as a child molester. The attachments suggest Lucky has planted a bomb at Woody's, so Keith confronts Woody about the danger his family is in and also about the molestation. But the A story in this piece is really Aaron Eccles' trial. After Aaron's testimony, unusual to call the defendant to the stand with other testimony pending, but there you are, Veronica and Logan and Keith are called. The judge could have kept the testimony on point a little better, but you know how silly celebrity trials can get, and despite eyewitness testimony to a middle-aged man having sex with a 16-year-old high school girl, when the verdict came in, well, that deserves a bit of unpacking. Unfortunately, it has been more than a decade since I watched this show, and I can't remember everything that led up to the trial that we're seeing in this episode. In 2 seasons of high-octane high school interactions, Veronica's relationships with everyone in her life undergo largely unpredictable ups and downs as rivals become allies and frenemies or just fade into the woodwork. Like, as she's studying for her finals, not-so-tough guy Weevil asks her for help with his algebra. He's got to get at least a B, and she doesn't have time, but runs into a math nerd in the parking lot whose car got keyed. Well, she puts him in touch with Weevil, who could help him buff out that vandalism, except turns out he's a lousy math tutor. A girl who likes the math nerd overhears the conflict. She's a better math tutor and is willing to help if Weevil will still fix the math nerd's car. Weevil gets his B, math nerd gets some free body work, and the girl hooks up with the math nerd. Veronica just sets it all in motion. Ah, the great circle of B story. But yeah, one season 2 episode, even one wrapping up a lot of storylines and delivering a bit of payoff in the run-up to the season finale, I'm coming into a little cold to put into much context. There was a fatal bus crash, Logan shared a weird memory about Lucky bleaching his feet while wearing a catcher's mask, Keith found out about Veronica's having contracted an STD from her testimony in Aaron's trial, which the defense manipulated to damage her credibility, and Keith's own testimony was overshadowed by a violent outburst against the defense attorney. Different topic, but not helpful. Oh, and callback from episode 31 here, there was this painfully misdelivered line during Logan's visit to his father in prison. I mentioned the episode opened with Aaron on the stand testifying that Lily Kane had stolen his Oscar, and he went to her house to confront her, but she refused to give it back, going on to implicate Lily's brother, and so on. Anyway, when Logan sits down with his dad, he says, you know, if you had given Lily the performance you gave today, she might have given you the Oscar. Which, seriously, Doring is better than this. He has seasons of low-key, understated performances as Logan Eccles, as well as Joseph Costan in Moonlight, and, oh hey, I remember him as the sinister time god Kronos in the 7th season of Supernatural. That's 3 appearances I can lay my hands to in my collection, along with some voice work he did in a video game Ralph enjoys called Kingdom Hearts. I'll post a few pics on Video Fuzzy's Facebook page. But yeah, I don't know if they filmed this out of sequence, or he missed the table read, or it didn't even occur to him, but since, as viewers, we just saw this testimony moments ago, the emphasis was off. You know, if you would have given Lily the performance you gave today, she might have given you the Oscar. In that point of contrast from his testimony, she had not. In the end, as Veronica grows to her father, so apparently if you're handsome and famous enough, you can just lie under oath, and that's cool. She skipped a final she needed to ace, gave up her shot at a Stanford scholarship in order to witness the verdict, to wit, Aaron Eccles not guilty on all charges, including statutory rape, in which eyewitness testimony from his own betrayed son had implicated him. I was disappointed, but I'd noticed something about this show. The attitude and atmosphere of this show, showrunner Rob Thomas draws into his storylines. It's a rare moment in Veronica Mars that is unadulterated happy. Happy endings were quite rare. Unintended consequences spun out to tragic conclusions, and life in Neptune, California had the general energy of a series of unfortunate events. Rich people gamed the system and got away with horrendous things. Poor people dealt with unrelenting injustice, and at the center of it all, a beautiful young woman, way smarter than average, was no better off for her close relationship with her loving, supportive father because she had stuff to deal with too. Her mother abandoned them when Keith lost his sheriff position, which destroyed her social status in hyper-status conscious town. Not to mention her boyfriend found out Veronica could be his half-sister, she wasn't, and broke up with her. Ostracized, Veronica is determined to resurrect her social profile. She crashes a rich kid's party where she is drugged and raped and given a dose of the clap. So yeah, she's kind of cynical, but what she does do with that big brain of hers is track down who's responsible, and between her helping her dad in his fledgling detective office and her own investigations, discovers she's got a real talent for it. So while there are very few happy endings in Neptune, bad, terrible, and unspeakable things sometimes have positive outcomes. That, and she and her friends try to find the fun where they can and enjoy some occasional humor, however bleak. This episode, for example, gives us the following exchange between Veronica and Wallace. "Do you know how long I've wanted to go to Stanford?" "Since middle school," he said, and she quips, "Elementary, my dear Wallace." Adding, "Any idea how long I've wanted to say that?" Scrolling back through my catalog, this is the first Season 2 episode of Veronica Mars I've encountered. I've cataloged several from Season 3, and I've got the whole series on DVD, including Veronica Mars the movie from 2014. Happy-Go-Lucky was a good one to pull up, though. It's been a while since I encountered this show. It's the first time I've encountered it since I started this podcast, and I remember it fondly. It tackled dramatic themes capably, brought us along, mostly didn't strand us in too many story cul-de-sacs. The show respected the characters it created, most of whom were tolerably complex, which contributed to strong storytelling. It felt like if the show were any smarter, it would probably have shed more viewers and gone off the air. Could have been its home on the CW, but it always felt like it was this close to cancellation. So the fact that we got 3 full seasons of edgy, complicated, sometimes teen, sometimes human, and sometimes say-it-out-loud, telenovela-esque drama spoke to a creative team that hit for the bleachers every time and generally got there. Cool show.
Diving into the classic collection.
In my classic VHS-to-DVD collection, I ran into the second season premiere of Dead Like Me, where one reaped soul got terribly upset about dying at his daughter's birthday party. But there were some issues. The guy was not a pleasant person, to the point that no one really noticed or much cared about him. He choked to death silently at his daughter's birthday party, and no one noticed he was in any distress. He's ticked off that his Reaper, Mason, played by Callum Blue, came disguised as a party clown, not even an especially good one at that, and he's dismayed that this will be how from now on his daughter will remember her 11th birthday party. It's all very sad, but I thought it brought the show back beautifully. It's been about a year since George's death by plummeting toilet seat, and she's confronting Rube about her own demise. She's exploring the life she never got to live and taking a few chances with the one she's got, including a hot new car and hot new questions for Rube, such as how could he reap her when she was so young? What information did he have on her when he assigned her reap? It was a very cool episode in a series I loved getting a look at. It began its life on premium cable, and I only got to see it when Sci-Fi edited it for rebroadcast in a decidedly not premium cable ecosystem. Powerful storytelling, beautiful entry. There was an entry from the third season of the 4400 I'd loved to have spent a little more time with, featuring Summer Glau as Tess in The Ballad of Kevin and Tess. Her promycin unlocked 4400 ability is to visualize a plan and marshal those around her into following it. She envisioned a huge structure like that the crazy people were building in the 5th season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, that once investigators could get through to her, she wasn't clear what she was doing or why she needed it built. To be fair, Summer Glau plays these kind of characters really very well. In her performance as River Tam throughout Firefly, all the way through to the Serenity release in 2005, not to mention her work in The Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles productions, Summer Glau presents a clockwork function hacked by some exterior motivation quite convincingly. Part of my interest was piqued by a promo for a show I've recalled fondly in episode 14, The Night Listener by Robin Williams. That rather atmospheric chiller was released in 2006, and they aired a promo for it during that episode of the 4400. I never saw it until they aired it on the Sundance Channel in March of 2016, but I did enjoy it. I was thinking about this when I reviewed Williams in the final cut from 2004. He had such an instinct for dark, broken characters, a brilliant presentation in bringing them to life. I'm pretty sure I've got a few more dramatic pieces from him in my collection, almost certainly Insomnia, possibly 1 Hour Photo, and unfortunately the entire co-production between him and Buffy's Sarah Michelle Gellar aired during the Dark Ages for this collection, so I don't even have a scrap of the crazy ones anywhere, but fun as that Madcap production was, it was no match for Mork. He was present throughout, but there really wasn't a hell of a lot there, if you're hearing me. A better fit was Forrest Whitaker in the 5th season of The Shield. I caught the premiere where the internal affairs investigator clips just along the outside of Mackey's purview, nicking his strike team associate faithful Dago Lemansky, and oh wow, seriously, posing as a single parent of an autistic child to chat up Vic Mackey's estranged wife at a play event. 4 months before Mackey's retirement with full benefits, he is motivated to get the goods on him. He was dark, Machiavellian, smart, equal in so many ways to the strategic bureaucratic chess match Mackie had mastered, and I enjoyed the crap out of his development of this character. He was an anti-villain point on par with Mackie's anti-hero, and they brought a ton of energy throughout this season. I enjoyed him a lot more in this than I ever could in his Criminal Minds spin-off in 2011, that's for damn sure. I found another episode of Dirt in this batch, and gotta say I'd have loved to spend a little more time with this one too. Courtney Cox's Lucy Spiller encounters Vicki Lewis as a beautician with some dirt to dish in a season 2 episode from that show. I loved her in news radio, and I see where she may actually make another appearance in my collection if I was still recording into the 4th season of Bones at all. There's a fair chance I do see some season 3 episodes in my classic listing. If I find another appearance, it'll definitely give me another photo packet to post. Fun! Also appearing in this episode was Callum Blue from Dead Like Me as a rival photographer, so fun to see him in here as well. And before I go, this became something of a theme for this episode, but I encountered an old problem when I was cataloging episodes of Battlestar Galactica. I was going along, bringing in episode after episode onto discs 526, 527, and 528 when I was confused. I could swear I'd cataloged through to the end of Season 1 and was up to the premiere of Season 2 when it became unmistakably obvious to me that the episode I expected to be the second season premiere was clearly still the first season finale. Actually, the second half of a 2-parter called Cobal's Last Gleaming. I was confused because the number of episodes I'd cataloged insisted that that's where I was. Well, I went back through show descriptions. Each episode seemed to match the show I had recorded until suddenly I catch a glimpse of Badger/Crowley, attorney for Gaius Baltar and Nathan Ford's nemesis in the Leverage series, better known here as Romo Lampkin. Actually, his premiere appearance in The Sun Also Rises, an episode from the 3rd season of Battlestar Galactica, saved entirely out of order, pulling me up short and reminding me of my discussion in episode 9 of the problem of assumption in bringing in recordings made to tapes more than a decade ago, and the importance of making sure each episode is what you say it is when you enter it into your catalog.
Current collection.
Sometimes you get to share the blame for such oopsie-daisies, a reminder that there's fallibility to be found in any human enterprise, specifically when I was cataloging the 4th season resume of We Bare Bears, an adorable cartoon airing more or less daily right now on the Cartoon Network. Now, I pull my catalog information primarily from a couple of different sources, the Internet Movie Database imdb.com and tv.com, both of which tend to be pretty reliable, one a bit more commercial, one a bit more fan-driven, but each with their strengths and weaknesses. As the 4th season has continued and new episodes have aired, I encountered a catalog entry from Disc X173, Title 8, called Hot Sauce. IMDb did not have an episode entry for this one, so I turned to the We Bare Bears wiki, where I learned that it was episode 11. Well, that's odd, because IMDb said We Bare Bears Season 4 Episode 11 was Googs. So I checked that with the We Bare Bears wiki, and they affirmed that that was Episode 3. Well, I had Hurricane Hal down for Season 4 Episode 3. They assured me that Hurricane Hal was actually a Season 3 episode, number 39. Well, crap. Now I know I've got a lot of mixed up entries in my catalog if I've got goofs going back to Season 3. I clicked around and sure enough, at least half a dozen entries needed reconciling with the We Bare Bears wiki, which, well, I can't swear to anything these days, but I will note right here for anyone who may be listening that there is a gap in the IMDb numbering for the 3rd season of We Bare Bears between Episode 7 and Episode 9, and the episode that We Bare Bears wiki says is supposed to be there, Charlie's Big Foot, is listed as entry number 5, which episode We Bare Bears wiki asserts should be Ralph. So I've got some blog entries to update, and from here on out I for sure know where I'll be going for the definitive down low, at least for We Bare Bears info anyway. I mentioned The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and I think this is just an unfortunate confluence of material, but just as he rightly rips on the president for claiming people get carded and need to bring their ID for groceries, so why should voting be any different? And for the record, I think anyone should have to provide at least some ID to vote. We can be kind of expansive about it, and I realize I'm speaking from privilege, but, you know, something. But yeah, Stephen rightly called him out on that ridiculousness, but then, not too far along from that, we learned that hackers had broken into the fast food systems like Arby's and Chipotle, and Stephen expresses surprise that people use credit cards to purchase food there. Stephen, I'm going to have you and your writers join me over here on camera 3. Stephen, I'm not sure what you think people come into an Arby's with to buy a roast beef sandwich, or, as I tend to prefer, a French dip, Swiss cheese melting over roast beef piled high and served with a generous portion of au jus. Oh my, that is tasty and toasty. Toasty and tasty both. But yeah, the vast majority of transactions in today's society, even way up here on the edge of civilization in the great empty rectangle that is North Dakota, we hooked the telegraph lines up like a decade ago, and we've been using those to party line into the big city, and Miss Kitty transfers our debit cards to St. Cloud, and then the fancy bankers in New York City issues a bank check to Arby's, puts a stamp on it, and mails it out that very afternoon. Practically overnight. Sometimes our sandwich is still warm. No, seriously, numbnuts, we use credit cards for just about everything. And I know you were making a funny, but it doesn't hold up when you just ripped our president a new one for not knowing how shopping works, to turn around and not know how paying for fast food works. To rehabilitate a tagline from one of David Spade's old shows, there I said it. A couple of highlights on what else I've been watching and cataloging my current direct-to-DVD recordings. It's not cataloged yet, but I'm enjoying some episodes of How the Universe Works on the Science Channel. It's high up on the grid if you're looking. The episodes are structured similarly to the History Channel production of The Universe from a few years back. Different scientists, astrophysicists, and theoretical physicists, no one anyone's heard of, take on the cosmic questions from different points of view, intercut with very repetitive computer-generated animation, particularly in the segment titled Do Black Holes Exist? And they explored the reality of, well, from our perspective, it's hard to get a really good look at a black hole. It's black and space is black. Black on black doesn't really stand out too well. And I'm thinking there was something at Cygnus X or thereabouts, a powerful source of X-ray radiation, which they did mention, but not by name, I don't recall, as being a tip-off for a massive black hole. As stellar material is pulled in, jets of material stream off in opposite directions, indicating a black hole. Well, no, we don't know for sure, but the math is checked out, and people way smarter than me have studied these phenomena and conclude that that's what's going on in these situations. Best guess, best explanation, that's a black hole. So, answering the title question, yes? So, not top-name scientists explore tantalizing questions. I enjoyed it, along with the discussion of space-time, which also had some mailed-in computer-generated graphics and less math than I might have liked. I mean, we do know some of this stuff. We have to, as one of them said, if we do not compensate for space-time dilation on the order of nanoseconds between the planet and orbiting satellites, GPS would be hopelessly out of sync in less than an hour. Very smart people have conducted extremely sensitive calculations to keep our cars on the road, our planes in the sky, and our phones talking to each other, not to mention billions of dollars of stock market transaction and that stagecoach run Miss Kitty rides in on every day at high noon with our Chipotle orders. Yee-haw! No, I'll stop, but seriously, Stephen, I'd say these productions are packaged more for pop science, the very casually interested. They won't help you in prepping for any exam you might have on the subject, but could spark some cool discussions or lead one to explore the topic more in depth through independent reading of the more accessible physicist writers Hawking, Green. I'm still enjoying Randall at the moment. I mean, there's certainly some knowledge out there to explore. And as I've been enjoying the second season of Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, I encountered a beautiful face from the past I have loved in everything I've seen him in. Tyler Labine! Oh, my very favorite Sweet Scruffy. I loved him in Reaper and Mad Love, and once I finally recognized him, I'm so enjoying him in this as well. He's playing a small-town sheriff in Bergburg, southern state somewhere, and he's just... Oh, I love the attitude and energy he brings to this role, sort of a side supporting character, and as written, he's not moving the story along much, but I'm maybe about halfway through the second season, and as of this writing, I'm really enjoying it so far. Also enjoyable, though not much in evidence, is the brilliant Alan Tudyk, who seems to be in charge of the mysterious paranormal paramilitary operation, but whose solution to everything seems to be shooting it up, so kind of a weird approach if you're looking for answers, maybe understandable if you're just trying to wipe out the paranormal altogether. I'm sure if I just keep watching it, I'll find out for sure. I was going to spend more time on this, but frankly, it's getting late, this is getting long, and on reflection, it really doesn't merit a hell of a lot of exploration. I'm just going to mention several shows I've been watching lately have drawn into some lulls. Energy-wise, it makes sense in a couple of situations. The Sinner, I've seen 2 episodes now. It's never high energy. It's a very low-key show, moves at its own pace, subtle, atmospheric. This past week, we got to explore the compound and the cult the murderous child grew up in, and some of the lead investigation team's backstory. It draws us along, but is likely to be the level of this show, which thrives on dramatic tension and suspense. Less acceptably were relatively low energy entries from Preacher and Dietland. Dietland I could not be okay with. This show has depicted a suicide bomber detonated right in our faces, and then I think season 1 closed out with a dramatic reveal that Plum's going to stay with the group, chasing after the getaway car and getting in as they escaped. That was so low-key I didn't even realize it was the season finale. I mean, even Claws, which has so much going on in every episode, a point-blank shot to the head seemed anticlimactic as presented in an episode where the big reveal was Polly was having hallucinations. Which, okay, maybe I'm too ready for these storylines by now, but I'd kind of been suspecting the entire episode. unforgivably was Better Call Saul, the 4th season premiere. The big action sequence was Mike Ehrmantraut investigating safety violations at a corporation, and that's mainly because we had no idea what he was up to. I mean, Jimmy dealing with the aftermath of his brother Chuck's suicide in the opening sequence where Jimmy, lately Saul, lately Gene, has a heart attack and his ID wasn't checking out. No. Seriously, guys, we've been gone for a year. You need to come back with something. I mean, power reorganization among southwestern meth distribution channels, money laundering through corporate safety inquiries, and let me read your brother's obituary out loud for several minutes over the phone. I mean, it was a sweet farewell to Michael McKean's character, but they also had the actual funeral, so cut one or the other. For a show that has exploded with high-powered lawyering and chicanery, power struggles and emotional upheaval, that kind of prosaic disconnect is unworthy. Very quickly, because I've got to get to bed here, I've made some progress in pulling Supernatural off the DVR, and I'm mostly still enjoying it. The Wayward Sisters entry pointed to a brilliant spin-off that could very well have been intriguing direction, centered around a rift to an alternate dimension that would have made for some fantastic storylines, sticking with the Supernatural universe, but holding to a home-based location, but with a decidedly fresh energy. I still think all of that is still available, and if they want to pull some of that in for season 14, that would be a great move. And Trial and Error continues on NBC, shifting focus as Josh has excellent reasons to suspect his former client, exonerated on all charges, Lavinia Peck Foster, now did kill her husband, as well as her husband's mistress, and he's pursuing it through reopening an old case, so wow, this show throws some twists, not least of which his potential paternity in the case of Carol Ann Keene's pregnancy, and then his not especially professional potential canoodling with M-Town podcaster Nina Rudolph. It's all go in Eastpak, that's for sure. And with that, I want to thank you all so much for checking out my video cataloging project. You can check out my catalog listing along with audio links at videofuzzy.blogspot.com and past episodes of this podcast at Apple Podcasts and iTunes at videofuzzy.libsyn.com, or you can check me out on Spotify. Feedback is always appreciated, and you can contact me through my blog or podcast sites or through my Video Fuzzy page on Facebook, or you can follow me at TJ Video Fuzzy on Twitter. For Video Fuzzy, I'm Terry J. Amon. Happy viewing.
It might be amazing, it might just be scuzzy. We'll find out together on Video Fuzzy.